My name's Erinn. This summer I am the leaders coordinator, and I've been coming to camp for 12 summers now, and Gavin asked me to name all of the programs. So I was a first timer, and then on main camp, and then I did Trailblazers, and then I did Voyagers, Leaders in Training, Counselor in Training, and then I was on staff. Cool. So my story kind of spans two periods of my life at Echo, and it starts at when I was in a teen program, and teen programs like to take their group of campers and just take them somewhere and spring something crazy on them, and this was one of those times. I think it was after Saska. So we woke up and they're like, okay, put sneakers on and we're gonna go on a hike. And I was like, okay, like, it's a hike, we can go on a walk, like, that's fine. And they get really into it. It's kind of like Rambo style, like walking through the woods. And so they have bandanas and they're getting us really into it. And I'm like, I don't really know what we're doing, but I put my sneakers on and we start walking. And we're walking down Echo's nature trails, which are beautiful. There are like trees everywhere, and it's a really nice place. And at this point down this nature trail, it's all stuff we recognize, because it's nice as a camper, as you get older, you recognize more of camp. So we're walking to an area and we're kind of headed towards an overnight site, which is off of the main camp, and it's called Pioneer Village, or what we call PV. I was like, okay, we've seen this before. So they kind of stop us here at PV. And they put us in a circle and they're like, we're gonna go on a hike that you've never been on before. And I'm like, okay, this is weird, like, you know, we're old, we've been to camp for a really long time, we know the gig. And they're like, are you guys ready? And we're like, yeah, we're ready. We're like, we've definitely been on this hike before, like, we're old, we get it. And instead of keeping going on the nature trail, they take us behind the Pioneer Village barn, which is a place a lot of campers know about, down a hill and into a creek. So they, you know, instruct us to not smash branches into each other's faces, and we're very confused. We've never been down this trail before. We're kind of making our own trail a little bit. And so we're walking, and all of a sudden it turns down into this ravine, and you almost have to walk sideways, like in skiing, like, so you don't fall down this ravine. And we're helping each other out, and we're talking to each other, and we're like, what are they doing? This isn't a real thing. And we end up in this creek, and there are frogs, like the little tiny frogs, everywhere, which are like kind of beautiful, but when you're a teen, and even when you're a counselor, you're kind of like grossed out by them. And there are bugs and all of this stuff. So they put us in a circle in the ravine. So we're about ankle deep in water. And they say, okay, this is where our hike begins. And we're like, what? Like, how is our hike just beginning? And they're like, pick one word about how you think this exercise is gonna go. And all of us are like, freezing, or tiring, or hard, or unexpected, things that are generally negative. And I can't feel my feet at this point. It's so cold. I was like, are they even allowed to take us into this water? I didn't understand it. And so they're like, all right, so these are your words, remember your words, let's start walking. And we walk down this creek, and it's not even a hike anymore, it's almost a swim. We're knee deep in freezing water. It's rushing, and you know, the rocks are slippery under the water, you can't really see much. And you know, there are thorns all over the place. It's insane. I've never been so out of my element before, being from just outside Chicago. And suddenly something started to happen, and I didn't really realize it, but suddenly my group started talking to one another. We started, you know, saying like, oh, are your feet okay? Like, how we doing? We start like making sure that people don't have their branches smashing in their face, being like, oh wait, there's a thorn over there, be careful. You know, really communicating with each other and building the team. And the counselors really don't say much, they just kind of lead us through it. And we're going and we're going. One time we have to work under a log, and so we're holding each other's hands, making sure you get under the log. And finally, the creek spits out onto the giant lake that camp is on. And the funny thing about this was, the second you walked into the lake from the creek, it was like you had walked into a hot tub. It was like the best reward I've ever gotten in my life, after walking for 20 minutes in the cold water into the hot, hot lake. And we were so excited about having completed it, and it was such a celebration. And I think they had us like eat lunch out in the lake, and we had like PB&J sandwiches together or something. And we all sat in our circle again, and they said, all right, remember your old word, but think of your new word. And our new words were things like teamwork and cooperation and, you know, excited and jubilant, things like that. And to see, even as a camper, the transformation that my group had made from the beginning of that trip to the end was something that made me fall in love with my program. And so fast forward maybe 5 or 6 years, I'm now out of cabin, and sometimes I miss cabins, so I, about twice a week, take new groups out to do that same hike. And we ask kids the first question about one word as they're standing in freezing cold water, and then that word at the end about how excited and how strong their team was growing. And I think it's been so exciting to see as a staff member the same transformation week after week that kids are seeing in their groups that I saw when I was a camper. And it's what makes me excited to be here.